Welcome to Life as God Intended. I'm Don. Glad you've tuned in for another broadcast. And today we're going to be talking about a very important subject, autophagy and fasting. I'm sure if you're a Christian, you've heard about fasting, but you may or may not have heard about the word autophagy. It's a very important word. And so before I go any further, thanks for subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate it when you share these videos with friends and family and encourage them to subscribe to the channel if they're new to it. We also appreciate you liking these videos because it helps with the algorithms, and the more that we can get the message out of grace and life as God intended, the better. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for helping share these important videos. So what are the benefits of autophagy and fasting? That's what we're going to be discussing today. And the reason that I'm talking about this is, if you remember, in a couple of videos ago in my testimonial on my 40 days and 40 nights of my water fast, and if you hadn't heard that, you might want to tune into that. But definitely 40 days and 40 nights, because when you're only drinking water and not taking in any food, the days and the nights tend to really lengthen. Now, of course, the time hasn't changed. It's still 24 hours, but it feels a lot longer. So in that last video on fasting, I had promised to share with you what I had personally learned about the benefits of autophagy. So I just mentioned it in that video, but I didn't really explain what it was or go into any detail. And so, true to my promise, I shall do so in this particular video. If I can get my PowerPoint to work. Oh, here we go. So it's working. So first things first, a disclaimer. And this is very important. I am not a medical doctor, nor am I giving medical advice. I am simply sharing what I have learned and what I have personally experienced through my own personal journey and research about long-term fasting. So please, before you decide to fast or do anything that I'm talking about, consult your doctor before attempting a fast. So that's important. That way you get medical advice and I don't get in trouble. So let's begin by reading the words of Jesus. That's always a great place to start, isn't it? And this is recorded for us in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 16 through 18. And obviously it's regarding the subject of fasting. And he says that whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face as the hypocrites do. And so it's implied, that Jesus expected us to fast. Okay? He wouldn't have said whenever you fast if people weren't fasting. So it was something that was customary for his disciples to do. So that's the way he begins, the way he does. Whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face as the hypocrites do, for they neglect their appearance, so that they will be noticed by men when they are fasting. So they want to draw attention to themselves, and that's obviously not the point of fasting. He goes on to say, truly I say to you that they have their reward in full. Now that's interesting. We're going to talk more about that as we progress. Jesus is inserting the word reward. And so he's implying that particularly the Pharisees who wanted to get approval and attention, that was the only reward they were going to get. In other words, kind of a reward of pride. But Jesus goes on to say, but when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so your fasting will not be noticed by men, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So once again, there we see the word reward that Jesus is interjecting here. So we're going to talk about, what does that mean? Like he seems to be implying a negative aspect of rewards and a positive aspect of rewards. So as Christian fasting, and that's really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as Christians. Anybody can fast, but we're talking about as a Christian, should always be something that Christ, as your life, is leading you to do. In other words, if he's not leading you to fast, you have no business fasting. The reality is you don't have any business doing anything that he's not leading you to do, because he's your life. And the Christ life is participating with Jesus Christ as your life. So, as mentioned, we're talking about autophagy and fasting. So we'll start with, what is fasting? Well, simply understood, fasting is any time your body's not eating. It seems simple enough, doesn't it? It is a normal, what we may not have understood or realized is it's a normal daily process that everybody experiences. You say, well, Don, I haven't fasted in a long time. Well, I think maybe you just didn't realize you were fasting. Because anytime you sleep at night, unless you're getting up during the night and eating, your body is fasting. And that is why we have referred to the first meal of the day as breakfast, or breaking fast. That's where the name came from, because every night you're fasting. And so basically fasting is abstaining. It's going without food and drink. That's the basic understanding or definition of what it means to fast. Now, why fast might be the next question. And it's a great question because there's a lot of benefits to fasting. First of all, fasting creates structure. Many of us need structure in our life. And it also creates consistency when it comes to eating. We live in a day when there's so much inconsistency. In other words, people are snacking and eating randomly all day long, and it's created quite the health issues in our society. If you go back and take a look at the 70s and around somewhere in the early 80s, there was a shift, and our society has become much more obese because of that shift in our eating habits. So fasting creates structure and consistency to eating. And when you are fasting, your body is using calories that it stored during the periods of time when you were eating. So it's just a reality that if you eat more and more, you are going to want to eat more often, and your body never gets a chance to actually burn the stored calories and fat, nor does it really get a chance to rest. And that's why, every night when we do sleep and rest, that the body does get an opportunity to burn some of those stored calories and fat and get rest that it desperately needs. And so fasting helps to control eating. It is the simplest form of losing weight. So, there's so many ideas of dieting and so forth, but I'm just telling you, if you want to lose weight, just fast. And what we're going to discover in this particular broadcast is that fasting enhances autophagy. Now, we're going to talk in some detail more in a minute, so just stay tuned. We're getting there, okay? Fasting does enhance autophagy. And probably some of the reasons why many of us haven't fasted consistently is because it's become so infrequent, is because we think of fasting mainly as what we're going to go without rather than what we're going to get. So that's a little bit of a paradigm shift. And I think you need to ponder that one with the Lord. I think we've gotten a negative view of fasting, and we've just assumed that fasting, is a difficult, not that there isn't a challenge to fast, but we've seen it only in a negative light. We've only thought of it in regards of what we're going to not have, food intake, and we really haven't thought about the positive implications of what we're going to get out of the fast. And so one of the purposes of Christian fasting is not simply going without, but getting in on something special that God is wanting to work in your life. And so we don't want to miss out on that. And I think, unfortunately, many of us have, because we've just seen this one-sided approach to fasting. Now, our abstaining always serves God's purpose. That is, if he's leading you to do it. Obviously, it's not a work of the flesh. If it's a work of the flesh, I don't care what you think you're doing. It's not serving God, or it's not serving you either. So as God leads you to abstain from food in a fast, God's purpose is going to be accomplished, and you're going to be experiencing some essential gain and not loss. And so, again, a little bit of a paradigm shift in how we've thought about fasting. It reminds me of what Paul stated, not necessarily directly in relationship to fasting, but just the Christian life in general, where he says in Philippians chapter 3 and verse 7, "But whatever things were gained to me, those things I have counted as loss for the sake of Christ." All right, so if he's leading you to a fast, then obviously he's the one doing it, and he's wanting you to gain from participating with him in this unique time of abstaining from food. And so, as I mentioned, Christian fasting is abstaining for the sake of some specific purpose that Christ has in mind. It's what is Christ up to? Because if it's not what Christ is up to, whether it's fasting or it's anything else that you do throughout your day, then it's not really truly Christian. That's why you've heard me say this time and time again on broadcast, that the Christian life is the Christ life. So if it's not a Christian fast, then it's not Christ's specific purpose, and you're not going to gain what God is wanting to accomplish in your life through that particular fast. So it's got to be something that he's leading you to do for him to be able to accomplish his purpose in your life. So Jesus exhorts us to fast in secret with a promise. And this is so interesting. Again, we come back to that word reward, because it's with a promise that your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So I guess the question that we would want to ask, but how? How is he going to reward you? And we want to be careful, because, religion has presented all these performance-based rewards that really aren't Christian at all. And so let's clarify. What's Jesus talking about? I believe that the reward of fasting is experiencing God's strength when we are weak. Now, again, we can experience that on a day-by-day basis. We don't have to be fasting to experience that. But Jesus is specifically talking about when you fast. In other words, when you fast in secret, when you are directed by the Lord to participate with him in a fast, that's when you're going to experience a greater sense of his empowering, his strength. His strength's going to make you able to do what otherwise you can't do. And so, as a Christian, we derive from Christ always, but never on a deeper level than when we're fasting, because we're abstaining, we're denying ourselves. It's a time where we're weakened, and we can be more in tune with God. We can definitely hear his voice more clearly And definitely we become more single focused. I can testify to that. I mean, the mental clarity that comes during fasting is just amazing. It's like you're just in sync, you know? It's like you're in the zone. And so I believe that the reward of fasting is to be keenly aware of the work of God in us. Now, again, I'm not suggesting when you're not fasting that you shouldn't be keenly aware, because that's what Paul is saying in Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 and 13, where he says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And then notice what's the point of reference. For it's God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So Christian fasting is not mainly about going without, but about experiencing more of his work in us. And again, I'm not saying that he can't, he's doing a greater work. I think you're more in tune with the work that he's wanting to accomplish. We get distracted, don't we, by so many things, whether it's just the circumstances of our life, or the challenges, or the flesh patterns of sin that are Satan's constantly using to distract us from whatever God's doing, where when fasting, you're just eliminating food, which is a major part of our life, and you're eliminating your body having to digest food, and you're just, like I said, you're in the zone with the Lord, so you're more in tune with what he's at work in you for such a time as this. In fact, as I was thinking about this and preparing this, I said it might be said that fasting is hearing God made simple. You know, I hear a lot of people, because, you know, obviously I counsel pretty much every day. Even when I'm not in the counseling office, I find myself connecting with people that we can have deep spiritual conversations with. And it's not unusual for people to say, well, you know, I don't really hear God the way I like, or I'm not sure I'm hearing God. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you're a Christian. Of course you hear God. Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. And so if you've struggled maybe to hear God, may I encourage you to pray about allowing him to lead you into a fast, because I guarantee you, you begin to hear his voice clearly, because fasting is hearing God made simple, because a lot of the distractions are going to be taken away. So you might be asking, well, where to begin when considering fasting? And I want to make this as practical as possible. So I would encourage you to take advantage of your sleeping fast. Again, many of you might have not realized that you fast every day, and it's when you're sleeping. And so one of the easiest ways is to extend that time by simply skipping breakfast. Again, breakfast is to break the fast. So this will extend your normal fasting time while you're sleeping from, you know, whatever you sleep, whether it's 6 hours, 8 hours. You don't maybe eat right away, you know, when you go to bed, and you may not eat right away when you get up. So basically you're extending your sleeping fast from like 8 to 10 hours to at least 12 to 14 hours. Okay, so now you fasted 12 to 14 hours just by skipping breakfast. And then as you become accustomed to this, and I would say take time to do so, let your body adjust, you know, if you're a novice particularly, and then lengthen the time that you fast. When you get up in the morning, extend that time to 18 to 20 hours as you have grown accustomed to longer periods of fast. Then as you kind of become accustomed to that, you may choose different days of the week to actually fast. Like maybe you're going to go without food like every other day, or maybe just one day a week to start with, and then the next week maybe 2 days, or, you know, but alternate those days. Now many begin to train their bodies through what is referred to as intermittent fasting. So really what intermittent fasting is choosing a window. It's choosing a window to eat once a day ultimately, but again, work yourself up to that. So maybe to begin with, instead of eating 3 meals a day, you're going to eat 2 meals a day. But eventually the goal is to eat once a day. And ideally this window may be to eat between, let's say, between 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 6 o'clock. You don't want to eat after 6 anyway, because it's just going to interrupt with your sleep. So, but there's a 4-hour window that you can eat with, and there's so many other benefits, and I won't be able to address all of them in this particular video. But every time you eat, your body releases insulin to be able to digest the food. And of course, insulin is a form of sugar. So, you break any fast that's going on. So even if you're just snacking, you're breaking that. So to just choose this window, and I'm just suggesting as once you get used to this, kind of a 2 to 6 hour period of eating allows your body to fast the rest of the day or for the next 20 hours that you're not eating. And if you're trying to lose weight, may I encourage you to do some research on the benefits of the keto diet for foods to eat during this intermittent fasting, which will help you tremendously in losing weight. Now, you'll get so disciplined in this, and of course, the Lord's going to be your ability to do so. You can acknowledge all day long that you don't have the ability, but if He's leading you to do it, certainly He does. And you're walking by faith, which is simply to agree, okay, Lord, I can't, only you can, and I'm willing. So I've gotten it down to where I do intermittent fasting within basically a 2-hour period. So, now I'm basically fasting for 22 hours, which there's just tremendous benefits to doing so, which we'll talk about. So what are some of the tips to consider while fasting? Well, one of the most practical tips is ride out the hunger waves. I don't want to call them pains because it's not pains. None of us are starving. And fasting is not starving, by the way. Your body will still eat. We'll get into that in a moment. It's just using a different source for food. And so, but you will initially, especially in these beginning days, especially if you're going to go on a little bit more of a prolonged fast, like a day fast or a 2-day fast or a 3-day fast, you'll begin to feel kind of these waves of hunger. But ride them out. The feelings of hunger do not persist because, as I mentioned, your body will begin to use stored calories. You can trust God that He knew what He was doing when He designed you and put you together, okay? So really what you need to do when fasting is you need to be intentional while fasting. As I just mentioned, you need to remember, yeah, I can't. Maybe I'm not even feeling it. I can't fast. Only God can. Am I willing to participate with Him in the fast that He's directed me to do? So don't give in to those hunger urges. Give in to Christ. Say, okay, Lord, I'm going to trust you and your character to be my ability to do what I'm not really feeling like doing right now. I'm feeling like eating. Well, don't give in. Christ may encourage you not to eat by staying active. Now, again, there's a difference in just busyness and just, self-prescribed disciplines and the discipline of the Lord. I would never encourage you to simply do the principled approach to life, whether Christian or not. No, again, the Christian life is the Christ life. And so you should be in tune with what Christ is doing. And He may encourage you to be more active, to stay more focused on what He's wanting to do during those times of activities through you, rather than you be constantly focused on yourself and the fact that you're not eating. Trust me, when I did my 40 days and 40 nights fasting, I had a lot of those moments where I was focused on myself. And the Lord says, that's not cool, Don. We need to be engaged in something other than yourself. What am I up to? That's a good question, Lord. What are you up to? I'm struggling with the fact that, my body is eating itself. So take your mind off of eating by allowing the Lord to engage you in some consistent work, some things that, some project, and they don't have to be labor intensive, particularly if you're going on a long-term fast. If it's a shorter fast, I would encourage exercise. If it becomes long-term, then that's different. And it'll be important. We'll talk about some of that as we get a little bit further along in this presentation. But the bottom line is, let Christ lead you in your fast. This is what he's doing in you, not what you just think you're doing for him. Again, we don't want to flip back to a religious performance mentality. So what to expect when fasting? Well, you may experience, certainly on the front end, the first day or two, maybe even 3, but usually by the 3rd day, this will go away. You might begin to experience headaches or weakness. And again, if you go, the longer you go on a fast, the more you're going to experience weakness, maybe a little bit of being lethargic and just not having the same level of strength. And this may be due initially to your caffeine withdrawals if you've been a coffee drinker. And so you might want to, in preparation for a fast, kind of wean yourself off of that coffee addiction. Maybe do some, like half and half, half decaf, half regular, and prepare yourself for the fast, because you will have those caffeine withdrawals initially, but you'll break through those after the first couple of days. The other reason that you may have symptoms of weakness and maybe even a little bit of lightheadedness is that could be symptoms of dehydration. And this is very important, and that's why I'm encouraging you to consult your doctor. You do what your doctor advises you to do. But what I've found helpful, and this is through my own research and talking with doctors, the ones that actually understand that there's great benefit to fasting, I found it helpful to initially drink some herbal teas to begin to kind of ease myself into that long-term fasting. And as I got through those initial days, then I wasn't needing those teas any longer. But I want to make sure and emphasize this. When it comes to the feelings of, maybe lightheadedness or feeling a little lethargic or weak, that's probably a direct result of potential of becoming dehydrated. Even though you're drinking more water, and you need to drink more water than you would normally drink, sometimes it's not assimilated into your body because of the lack of salt. And so it's important that you do about a teaspoon a day of Celtic sea salt. And the reason you want to use this Celtic sea salt is because it helps your body to retain the fluid, retain the water, and it also provides essential minerals that are in that sea salt. So your body, when fasting in autophagy, which we're going to get to in a minute, the autophagy is not going to produce those minerals. So you need to supplement those minerals by the sea salt. Also, very important that you take electrolytes during a long-term fast. Once again, your body will not produce those electrolytes, and those are essential to you being able to have, not the symptoms of, extreme weakness and dizziness or faintness. And so electrolytes are extremely important. And you can find them, I did, electrolytes that don't have stevia, don't have flavorings. So you want an electrolyte that's not going to break the fast by taking it. And they are available. So make sure also, if you're going on a longer fast, and as I did, anything like 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, not many people do 40, some people go longer, but make sure you rest while you go on a long-term fast. And what I discovered through research is that resting and sleeping is very important to autophagy. Resting will help the whole process of the benefits of fasting, and especially will help and this may shock you, with weight loss. So again, if you're going to go on a long fast, like a Daniel fast is 21 days. If you're going to go on a 21-day fast or anything longer than that, you're going to want to do less exercise and more sleeping, because you're going to want to allow your body to gain the strength that it needs and also burn the fat and the calories that are stored, and actually resting helps to accommodate that. And so you burn fat while sleeping anyway, so you want to make sure that while you're doing a long-term fast that you're getting more sleep than you normally do. Very important. And so I want to encourage you to that. So as I mentioned a moment ago, fasting enhances autophagy. Now, Dr. Osumi, or Sumai, or however you say his name, I probably just slayed that. He was a Japanese research physician who did massive research, and because of his research, in 2016, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for his study on the subject of autophagy. And this information is available all over the internet and in many major medical papers. It's all written up because of the advancements that he helped in medicine relative to this important discovery and the benefits of autophagy that he discovered. Now, interestingly enough, why haven't we heard more about this? It was only during my 40-day fast, as I was doing more research and listening to doctors who were promoting fasting, which there aren't a lot, that, why is it that autophagy is it talked about more? What is autophagy, and how does fasting affect the body's ability to trigger autophagy? And as I stated, it's very interesting to me that the medical community has known about autophagy, but it's not something that's widely talked about or even recommended by your local physician. In fact, 4 years ago when I did a 43-day fast and I went to get my lab work checked because I had gone previously to the doctor, and so we were going to compare lab work, he scolded me for my 43-day fast. And yet all my lab work was like vastly improved. And so not all doctors appreciate it, and yet it's widely known within, the research of the medical community. And so autophagy is the single most important healthy thing a person can do to not only maintain health, but to reverse damaged and even diseased cells in the body. So you would think with that kind of research that's available that every doctor would be promoting this, certainly before we got sick, to help us to maintain our health. But it's not being talked about. It's not being promoted. And kind of a prime example of this is the following statement that I'd like to share with you from the Cleveland Clinic, which is a major hospital here in the United States, obviously in Ohio, and several different hospitals in Florida where I live. And this is their statement off of their site. Autophagy allows your body to break down and reuse old cell parts so your cells can operate more effectively. It is the natural cleaning out process that begins when your cells are stressed and deprived of nutrients. End of quote. Wow. Now, I've been in several Cleveland Clinic hospitals. I've been to several doctors who service those hospitals. I've never once had any of them recommend fasting to me or explain autophagy to me. Let me say it another way. Another way of describing autophagy is as follows. Autophagy is a natural self-preservation mechanism whereby the body removes damaged or dysfunctional parts of a cell and recycles other parts toward cellular repair or cellular rejuvenation. Wow, that's amazing. And so you can see why this is one of the healthiest things that you can do for your body and why the Lord would lead us to fast. Now you're saying, well, what does the word mean? Well, autophagy comes from a Greek word, which means, auto means self. Let's see if I can get in here on the screen. It means self, and phagy means essentially to eat. So autophagy literally means self-eating. Self-eating. You're eating yourself. Now, that sounds a little scary until you begin to realize the benefits of autophagy. You see, during fasting, autophagy occurs, and it occurs at night, and it occurs when you go without food. It'll really kick in if you go like 24 to 48 hours. And we might say that that fasting, especially long-term fasting, is really autophagy on steroids. That's my terminology. That doesn't come from the medical community, because that's what happens. When you fast, your cells live longer and produce more energy. You lose weight and you speed up your metabolism. Now, if you're like me, kind of an older guy, your metabolism slows down and it's harder to burn those calories. It's hard to keep off that weight. Well, guess what? If you fast, your metabolism speeds back up. And so all of this and much, much more is the result of autophagy. So you can begin to see that there is great reward. Not only reward in the way that Jesus was referring to it as far as being aware of kind of a greater in-tuned awareness of his work in and through us, but what about his work in restoring the health to our bodies? Obviously, he's concerned about that. So did you know that autophagy decreases the risks of heart disease, neurological problems, diabetes, inflammation, oxidative stress? You say, well, what is that? Well, oxidative stress is an imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants in the body, which can lead to cell and tissue damage. And so oxidative stress occurs naturally and plays a role in the aging process. So we all experience that. And autophagy helps to decrease that. Autophagy also decreases the risk of blood pressure. It protects against cancers. It improves cognitive abilities. It balances out cholesterol levels. Those are just a few of the things. There are more benefits to autophagy, including anti-aging. It's the body's natural way of turning the clock back and rebuilding old damaged cells. Imagine that. Autophagy helps to remove toxic proteins that are attributed to the neurodegeneration, diseases like Alzheimer's as a result. Autophagy recycles damaged proteins, as I mentioned. Autophagy is a kind of a building block for cells that need repair. And it prompts rejuvenation, a rebuilding of healthy cells. It may even help to prevent or slow down some cancer growth in your body. So there are marvelous benefits to autophagy. Now, why do we need to help this process if it is naturally occurring in our bodies? Great question. And one of the reasons is that autophagy declines as we age, like with a lot of other things. So cells that no longer work due to damage or simply the aging process begin to multiply, and then they begin to cluster. They begin to stack up. Kind of becomes a little bit of a junkyard in your body. And this clustering, this stacking up can lead to disease and the development of tumors. In fact, it's a fact that all cancer starts with some sort of defective cells and is fed by sugar, and autophagy helps to remove and rebuild these damaged cells and rid your body of excess sugar. And it's not just the sugar in your blood, it's the sugar that's stored in your body and in these damaged cells. So amazing results that autophagy produces in your body. Now, don't know what just happened here, but we went too far in this slide presentation, and that is unfortunate, but I'm just going to take it where it's at because we've gone long enough anyway. So how to break a long water fast, because that's kind of the one I was talking about. Breaking the fast is very, very important. You need to be extremely careful. If you fast 5, 10, 15, 20 or longer days, you don't just start eating right away because you could hurt yourself very badly, particularly if you do a 20, 30, 40-day fast. So breaking the fast may require as much discipline as beginning it. During the fast, your stomach contracts, your body's digestive system eliminates all kind of toxins and basically kind of goes into hibernation. All right, so your systems are kind of slowed down, and a lot of them aren't needed to work on the same level like when you were eating. So the longer you fast, the more time the digestive organs need to reactivate before functioning at full speed. Do not, please, do not eat solid food to begin with. Again, there are people that have died after fasting 40 days and then eating a regular meal. So to begin with, you know, you're only going to want to take small amounts of bone broth, and just small amounts, and maybe do that every couple, 2-3 hours. And you're going to do that for a day or two. And then you're going to begin to introduce maybe some steamed vegetables like steamed broccoli. After the second day, you'll begin to eat some very leafy green lettuce, you know, salads with none of the trimmings, without any dressing. You can begin to use some oil and vinegar. You need to give your body time to recover. And there is so much more to learning about fasting and autophagy. So I've just touched on it, even though this has become a longer video, and I understand that. Please do your own research on the subject. And most importantly, take God's lead in the matter. Okay? So it's very important that you take God's direction, you seek medical advice. So once again, thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for liking this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Make sure you push that notification bell so every time I upload a video that you get a notice through an email. I love to hear from you, so please share your comments below and this YouTube video, or send me an email. I've got an email link in the description. And really, the more interaction that these videos get by you and others, the more the algorithms are affected, and so we get a bigger audience. So until next time, it is my prayer for you that you will experience life as God intended.